The dust never settled in Cottonwood Creek. It hung in the air like memories, thick and golden in the late afternoon sun. Jake Thompson sat at the poker table in Murphy's saloon, his weathered hands holding cards that might as well have been his last hope. 3 years had passed since the fever took his wife Sarah and their baby boy. 3 years of drifting from town to town, playing cards and drinking away the pain that lived in it.
If you want to watch videos like this one, so visit our YouTube channel and don't forget to subscribe.
His chest like a stone. His ranch back in Missouri was gone now, sold to pay debts he'd accumulated trying to save them both. All he had left was his horse, his gun, and whatever coins jingled in his pocket. The other men at the table were the usual sort. Merchants, drifters, and a well-dressed man named Harrison who seemed to have more money than sense. Harrison had been losing badly all evening, growing more desperate with each hand. His face was flushed red from whiskey and frustration. I'm telling you boys, I've got something better than money to wager, Harrison slurred, swaying slightly in his chair. Something worth more than all the gold in California. Jake barely looked up from his cards. He'd heard desperate men make wild claims before. Usually, it ended with empty pockets and hurt pride. But something in Harrison's voice made him pause. What might that be? Asked Murphy, the saloon owner, leaning against the bar with his arms crossed. Harrison reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. A contract, he said, his words slightly jumbled. Legal and binding. The girl owes me 5 years of service. Her father couldn't pay his debts, so she's working them off. She's educated, speaks 3 languages, and can run a household better than any woman I've ever known. The room fell quiet. Even the piano player stopped his tune. Jake felt something twist uncomfortably in his stomach. He'd never owned another person, never wanted to. The whole idea sat wrong with him, like sour milk. That ain't right, Harrison, said Murphy, shaking his head. A person ain't property to be wagered. But Harrison was beyond reason now. The whiskey had taken hold, and his pride was wounded. One hand, he insisted, waving the contract in the air. Winner takes all. I'll either win back everything I've lost tonight, or I'll be done with the responsibility of caring for her. Jake wanted to walk away. Should have walked away, but something about the way Harrison spoke of the girl, like she was just another burden, made anger flare in his chest. Maybe it was the memory of how tenderly he'd once cared for Sarah. Maybe it was the whiskey talking. Or maybe it was just that he was tired of feeling empty inside. Deal the cards. Jake heard himself say. The hand played out in tense silence. Jake's 3 queens beat Harrison's pair of kings. Just like that, he found himself holding a contract for a young woman named Elena Vasquez. The next morning, Jake rode to Harrison's ranch with the contract burning in his shirt pocket. His head pounded from the whiskey, and his conscience felt even worse. What kind of man was he to win another person in a card game? Sarah would have been ashamed of him. The ranch house was modest but well kept. Harrison met him at the door, looking pale and sheepish in the morning light. She's in the kitchen, he mumbled, unable to meet Jake's eyes. Elena, come here, girl. She appeared in the doorway, and Jake felt his breath catch. She was perhaps 25, with dark hair pulled back simply, and intelligent brown eyes that seemed to see right through him. She wore a plain dress, but she carried herself with quiet dignity that made her beautiful. Elena, Harrison said awkwardly. This is Jake Thompson. You'll be going with him now. She looked at Jake for a long moment, taking in his rumpled clothes and unshaven face. He expected fear, or anger, or tears. Instead, she simply nodded. I'll get my things, she said, in accented English, her voice steady. Jake wanted to tell her she was free, that he'd tear up the contract right there. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she held herself, like she was already preparing for whatever came next. Maybe it was his own loneliness, so deep it had become part of him. The ride back to town was quiet. Elena sat beside him on the wagon seat. her small bag of belongings at her feet. She didn't speak, and neither did he. But, as they passed through the dusty streets of Cottonwood Creek, Jake found himself sneaking glances at her profile. Where are we going? She finally asked as they left the town behind. I don't rightly know, Jake admitted. I've been drifting for a while now. Haven't had a real home in years. She was quiet for another mile before speaking again. My father died owing money to many people. Mr. Harrison was just one of them. I chose to work for him rather than see my younger brothers sold into labor. Jake felt shame wash over him like cold water. I'm sorry, he said quietly, about your father, about all of this. Are you? She asked, turning to look at him directly. Her eyes weren't accusing, just curious. Then why did you play that hand? It was a fair question, and Jake found he didn't have a good answer. I don't know, he said finally. Maybe because I was angry at how he talked about you. Maybe because I'm tired of being alone. Maybe because I made a mistake. They made camp that evening beside a small creek. Alina built the fire while Jake tended to the horses. She cooked beans and hardtack over the flames. And they ate in comfortable silence as the stars came out overhead. What happened to you? Alina asked suddenly. To make you so sad? Jake nearly choked on his coffee. No one had asked him that question in 3 years. I lost my family, he said after a long pause. Fever took them. Haven't been the same since. Alina nodded slowly. Grief changes us, she said softly. But it doesn't have to break us completely. Over the following days, as they traveled north toward Oregon Territory, Jake began to see why Harrison had spoken of Elena's abilities. She could cook better than most restaurants, mend clothes so well the patches were invisible, and speak to people in their own languages when they passed through towns. But more than that, she had a way of listening that made Jake want to talk. He found himself telling her about Sarah, about their little boy who never got to see his first birthday, about the ranch they dreamed of building together. Alina listened without judgment, sometimes offering a word of comfort, sometimes just sitting quietly beside him. In return, she told him about her family in New Mexico, about her father's dream of owning land, about the books she'd read, and the places she hoped to see someday. Her voice carried stories like music, and Jake realized he looked forward to their evening conversations more than anything else. 3 weeks into their journey, they reached a valley in Oregon that took Jake's breath away. Rolling hills covered in green grass stretched toward distant mountains, and a clear river wound through the middle like a silver ribbon. This is beautiful, Alina said, standing up in the wagon seat to get a better view. Jake pulled the horses to a stop. Something about this place felt right, felt like home in a way nowhere had since he'd lost Sarah. What would you think about staying here? He asked. Alina looked at him with surprise. Here, but the contract says I owe you 5 years of service. Jake reached into his shirt pocket and pulled out the folded paper. Without hesitation, he tore it into pieces and let the wind scatter them across the valley. You don't owe me anything, he said. You never did. A person's freedom isn't something that can be won or lost in a card game. Alina stared at the scattered pieces of paper, then at Jake's face. Then why did you bring me all this way? Because somewhere along the road, I realized I wasn't just running from my grief anymore, Jake said quietly. I was running toward something new, toward hope, maybe, toward the possibility that a broken heart can learn to love again. She was quiet for a long moment, her dark eyes searching his face. And what if I said I'd like to stay anyway? She asked softly, not because of any contract, but because I've grown fond of your company. Because I think we both deserve a chance to be happy again. Jake felt something shift inside his chest, like ice breaking up in a spring river. I'd say that sounds like the best hand I've ever been dealt, he said, reaching for her hand. They built their cabin in that valley, working side by side through the summer and into fall. Jake proved handy with tools, and Alina had an eye for making a house into a home. They planted a garden, built a chicken coop, and slowly created something neither had dared to dream they could have again. Asterisk on their wedding day, the following spring, as they stood beside the river with wildflowers in Elena's hair and the mountains watching over them, Jake marveled at how life could surprise you. He'd sat down at that poker table as a broken man with nothing left to lose. But sometimes, when you think you're losing everything, you're actually about to find what you've been searching for all along. Asterisk Alina had healed more than his broken life. She'd shown him that love doesn't come just once, and that healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to carry your past gently while building something beautiful for the future. Asterisk as the sun set over their valley, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Jake squeezed his wife's hand and felt truly wealthy for the first time in years. Not because he'd won her in a card game, but because they'd chosen each other, freely and completely, when it mattered most.